On today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, does Marvel need to reboot the MCU once we get through with Avengers Secret Wars? Also, speaking of Secret Wars, we're going to go over our 5 top picks of the people who should absolutely be directing this upcoming movie. In strike news, the studios are now pulling over international programming to put on air, including a new NCIS show. Also in strike news, Warner Brothers has just suspended the major development deals with major creators like Bill Lawrence, Mindy Kaling, J.J. Abrams, and others. And there's a report going around that Liev Schreiber is going to be returning as Sabertooth in Deadpool 3. That and a whole bunch more. The John Campea Show podcast starts right now. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming to you from right here in our quaint little studio, brought to you in part by our friends at Mint Mobile. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world: movies, movie news, TV, and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff. Not just giving you our opinions, but of course giving you information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether they're the same or completely different from ours. Joining me in studio today, got Ray Ora.
Happy Thursday.
Got Jonathan Voico.
Hey, hey.
Chris Carr is here.
Hey, everybody.
And most importantly, you are here. Thank you so much, guys, for being here, making this show part of your day. And here's how the show is going to go. We're going to start off by going through those topics that I just listed off. And then the last part of the show, we're going to take questions from our YouTube channel members. And before we get into any of that, I got to tell you, give you a little bit of insight on what life is like for John. That's what life is like for John. Now, I'm married. Many of you know that. Some of you may not. And I'm married to a dynamo woman, just a fantastic woman. This is my wife, Ann. She is both a model, the DM of our Dungeons and Dragons group. She's the vice president of a major international marketing company, and she's going to be the first Dr. Campea, as she's right now in the process of getting her doctorate. She also likes to remind me every once in a while that she has other options. So yesterday, I come home. This is maybe file this under a bit of celebrity news. I come home yesterday, and Ann comes running around the corner. I'm like, "Hey, baby, home." She goes running around the corner. She goes, "Honey." And she's got this big idiot smile on her face. I'm like, "Yeah, baby." She goes, "Did you hear the news?" And like just light flashing across her face. She's so happy. I'm like, "No, what?" And I'm thinking like she just got a promotion, or the Philippines won some kind of medal or something. I don't know. And she said, "Joe Jonas is getting a divorce." And she had this big smile on her face. And there was this like 5 dead, silent, awkward seconds. I'm like, and the smile on her face never changed. I'm like, you do know we're married, right? She goes, "Yeah." And so, yeah. So apparently, Joe Jonas, which one was he married to? The Indian
Sophie.
Oh, yeah. That's right. It was the other one who's married to the Indian star.
To Pat, or what? Who's he married to?
I keep forgetting her name, but Sophie Turner. Yeah, so apparently Joe Jonas and Sophie Turner. There you go, guys. That's the celebrity gossip of the day. But made my wife really happy, and of course put me on notice. So there's that.
Oh, it's Priyanka. That's the other one. Nick Jonas is married to Priyanka Chopra.
Right. By the way,
stunning human being.
Stunning.
So talented. So smart. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Didn't love that show that she did, the streaming show she just did with Game of Thrones.
Oh, with
yeah, where the super agent spy
God, I
things.
can't remember the name of that one.
Yeah, that's
I watched
how bad
the
it
first
was.
Collateral
episode.
or something like that?
No.
Collision? Something.
The top hat, the undercarriage. I can't remember. It was like
the undercarriage?
I don't know. It was some short word. It was so forgettable. I even forgot the title of it fairly quickly.
Citadel.
That's it.
Which is a shame because Quantico was really good.
Yes.
She was
Yes, it
wonderful
was
in
quite
that,
good,
but-
actually. Anyway, guys, with that all down, let's talk about the stuff you're really here to discuss and talk about. And we're going to kick things off with this. You know, if you've been watching my show, you know, I am a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love the MCU, but I've also been fairly critical of it lately because they've fallen off. They've kind of lost their magic recently, and they are putting out stuff that is just not up to the standard of MCU that they have set over the previous decade or so. So some people have started asking the question, you know, well, maybe it's time to reboot the MCU? And that happens to be the topic of today's Mint Mobile hotline question of the day. Listen, guys, if you have a question for our show and you'd like to hear your own voice on it, go ahead and call our hotline anytime 24/7 at 951-268-4259. Every day we pick out one or two questions to address, and today's just happens to be about, should they be thinking about rebooting the MCU? Check it out.
Hey, John and crew, this is Skylar from North Carolina. As we all know, Marvel's been in a tough spot since Phase 4 has started, also known as the multiverse phase, and we know it leads up to Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. But my question is the fact that Marvel's had it very mixed the past few years. What do you think the chances are that they might consider a reboot in their universe after Avengers Secret Wars if this continues? Thanks, and bring on the filthy.
All right, Skylar, thanks a lot for calling that in. And yeah, look, I get it and I agree. The level of quality, the overall level of quality of the MCU has taken a decline. It doesn't matter if you're a massive MCU lover, maybe you're an MCU hater, but I think we can all agree that in recent years, they're putting out banger after banger after banger after banger. That hasn't been the case like it had been for the previous decade or so. So the question is, should they be looking at rebooting after we get to Secret Wars? Of course, we've got Avengers Kang Dynasty coming, and then Secret Wars. We're going to be talking a little bit more about Secret Wars in just a little bit here. I have been very critical of the MCU lately, but even I have to say, I think talk of rebooting the MCU is a bit premature. Like, do I see merits in rebooting the MCU? I do. It's become an extremely crowded place. They're starting to have some consistency issues. I mean, just multiverse alone, they've had 5 different movies talking about multiverse in 5 different ways. So there's not even like a consistent theorem about how multiverse even works throughout their movies. And maybe it's just kind of getting ahead of itself a little bit. So maybe there could be some wisdom in that. But as far as, are they in a position that they need to reboot because their quality has fallen off as much as it has? I believe that part of it might be a bit premature. Because let's look at a situation with another major comic book movie producing company that is about to do a reboot, which is, of course, DC. Well, with DC, you had a property there that never did live up to its potential, right? Like, they only had, out of all their films, they only had one that ever made $1 billion. And really, they only ever had 2 films that actually kind of lived up to their potential as far as getting audience response, critic response, and box office success. And I would argue that those 2 films were Wonder Woman and the first Aquaman. Those 3 films scored the trifecta. The audiences liked it, the critics liked them, the box office responded, right? But they didn't have any others. Like, I've said this before a million times. You put out a movie called Batman versus Superman, that movie should make $1 billion in its sleep. And it should have the potential to be a $2 billion film. Not that it had to be a $2 billion film, but it had the potential to be a $2 billion film. And I mean, they never even got close to $1 billion on that. Batman versus Superman. And they had a lot of movies that, quite frankly, crap the bed. And we've talked a lot in the recent months that in the last 5 years, the last 7 movies they've put out, none of them have even made $400 million. Right? And the leadership and the filmmakers basically who were overseeing that, and even the studio ownership that was overseeing all that, is now gone. They're all gone. Now you have in brand new leadership, a new head of DC. They're heading for a reboot. This was something that was primed for a reboot. But Marvel has been something very, very different, right? Whereas DC never did quite was able to live up to potential or meet expectations or anything like that, or have really grounded, consistent success. Take a look at Marvel. I mean, Marvel, for almost 10 years, they just put out hit after hit after hit after hit. I mean, yeah, I didn't like Iron Man 2 or Thor: The Dark World all that much, but I mean, you're talking out of all these films, I can't remember how many of them, like 7 of them were billion-dollar films. I just over and over and over again, hit after hit after hit. So now we're in this one window, like since Endgame. After all that, we're in this one window following Avengers Endgame, right? Okay, well, Spider-Man Far From Home was a big hit. Black Widow wasn't very good. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was magnificent. Eternals is better than people give it credit for, although it did financially struggle. It did. It financially struggled. But even its definition of, this is the difference between Marvel and DC. Eternals financially struggled. Well, for Marvel, financially struggled means making still over $400 million, whereas DC, the last 7 films, none of them have made over $400 million. So that's a big difference right there. Spider-Man No Way Home was almost a $2 billion film. Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness was almost a $1 billion film, making a lot more money than the original one did. But Thor, Love and Thunder, big step down. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, in my estimation, was a significant step down from the first Black Panther. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, in my opinion, was terrible. But then you had Guardians of the Galaxy, which was magnificent. Okay, so let's just go up to, let's leave Spider-Man Far From Home out of it, and we'll just go up to Black Widow, okay? Well, now you're only talking movies that they've put out really in the last 2 years. All right, Black Widow was not so great. Shang-Chi was great. Eternals was a question mark. No Way Home was magnificent. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness was a big win for them, even though it was a bit of a step down in quality compared to the first Doctor Strange, but it made more money, made almost $1 billion, big hit. Thor, Love and Thunder, Black Panther, and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania sell Guardians of the Galaxy. So we're talking about, even in this last just 2-year stretch, we're only talking 2 years, right? From Black Widow to now Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Just 2. As opposed to when we talk, say, again, against the counterpart here that we're making our comparisons to the DC universe, which never really ever got off the ground. And in the last 5 years has had its real dry spell of all the films making under 400 million. We're talking in the last 2 years. But even in these last 2 years, you had great films like Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home making almost $2 billion, Multiverse of Madness nearly making $1 billion. Black Panther Wakanda Forever, I believe, still made over 800 million.
Yeah, it was very decent.
If I'm not mistaken, I mean, we can talk all we want about how it was a step down from the first Black Panther. I want you to wrap your head around this. This Black Panther movie, which we all say was a big step down from the first Black Panther, still made more than double of what any DC film has made in the last 5 years. $860 million. Mm-hmm. More than double. So there's that. And Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was fantastic, made over $800 million, stuff like that. So is Marvel in a place where they need to consider rebooting after a 12-year run of great success and then a couple of year run where, yeah, they've had some big stumbles, but they've still had some big successes in that run too.
Yeah.
Building off of a previous decade plus of outstanding success.
Even in that list there, we're saying there's about 4 that were just, let's just say they took the L on 4, but there's 5 there that took a win.
Yeah.
So, and I liked Eternals like you, so really I'd say it's more like 3 to 6, not 4 to 5.
Right. But at least we can point to the box office of Eternals, right? And say that was a lower thing, right? Also Shang-Chi, which is, I believe, completely a magnificent film. I mean, of course, we're talking pandemic era and stuff like that, but still, Shang-Chi didn't make big money either, right? So there's that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's call it what it is. But even then, its troubles seem fairly minute compared to the troubles of other franchises we look at and say, these need to reboot. Now, they also ask that question, if things keep going like this. Well, yeah. And by the way, did you notice we're not talking about the Disney Plus thing? I think we all acknowledge that the Disney Plus side of things has been problematic. They've had a couple of big things on there, a couple of really, really excellent things on there, but they also have had some struggles on there. And Bob Iger, the new CEO of Disney, has acknowledged that, yep, the Disney Plus stuff has been diluting the Marvel brand. We're going to reel it in. We're going to make sure we put better effort towards that. So that's good. But we're talking about cinematically. And I'm just going to say, basically, it's premature to be talking about rebooting this with the small level of struggles they've had compared to the massive level of success that they've had. Anyway, Chris, you heard, the caller call in and ask. I think we all agree that Marvel's on a dip. I think they've kind of lost that magic touch a little bit right now. But does that put them in a position that they should be seriously sitting down and considering a reboot at this point?
I think at this junction, no, because anything you do is going to be judged against the entirety of the MCU, right? So even if we aren't in love with where it's at right now, you reboot everything. At this point in time, it's going to be, well, that's not my Tony Stark. Well, that's not how this should be.
Yeah.
Well, they were really building up to something great here. Look at the DCEU, I should say, right? Where no one was showing up to that. And yet we still right now are, I can't believe they've made this change. I can't believe this is happening. Well, where were you guys? Because those movies didn't make the money they should have made. So if you're going to be that mad, you got to show up to these films. And the films have to be good to support the excellent IP that they're using, right? So for the MCU, they first of all have so much set up right now. There's a lot of other things they can mine from. And if we do want things to get a little zesty and fresh again, they just got ownership back of some of their most important characters, the X-Men. So there's a lot still to do here. Now, do I think this will be rebooted at some point in time? Of course. You know, the center can only hold for so long. You cannot follow a decades-long journey spanning, 40 plus films. Maybe you can if they get really smart with it, but you're going to want to revisit these comics and at the very least do soft reboots of characters, much like the comics themselves do. But I don't see that happening for another decade, maybe. I'm not sure, I might eat crow later on that, but I think what they're doing right now is staying the course, introducing new characters, and then going to come back to some of these other ones they just got ownership of and try to include them in this universe.
I think there's an elephant in the room here too, by the name of Kevin Feige.
Yep.
Like what's the point of rebooting if Kevin Feige's still the person who's been in charge? If you're going to say everything's super struggling right now and needs a reboot, well, what's rebooting going to do if it's still the same person in charge, right? And I think Kevin Feige's track record of success pretty much speaks for itself. Now, if Kevin Feige was on the way out the door, which, by the way, I still believe in the next couple of years he'll leave, because I don't know what's left for him to accomplish at Marvel, to be honest.
And you don't want him to get a Kathleen Kennedy reputation, honestly,
exactly,
either.
and he doesn't want it either.
Yeah.
So at some point, he may decide to leave, but as long as Kevin Feige's still there, what's the point of rebooting because rebooting's not going to fix your problems if it's still the same people running it, right? The better thing to do is, remember, don't forget, for the last couple of years under Bob Chapek, Kevin Feige was stripped of a lot of his power. He did not have the same authority that he used to have under Bob Iger before, and now he's been given his power back. So let's see how that all kind of turns out. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to this, shall we? Sticking on the Marvel train here for a second, particularly with the upcoming Avengers Secret Wars movie. There was a report going out that you guys might have seen out there online. It's this one here. You can take a look at that. Sam Raimi is the top choice for the director for Avengers Secret Wars. I do not believe this report, just to be clear. I'm not calling anybody a liar. I'm just saying I don't believe the report. That's all. I'm certain whoever is reporting it absolutely probably heard that. I'm just saying I don't believe what they heard. That being said, it did raise an interesting thing for me. Like, we know who's directing Avengers Kang Dynasty. It's Shang-Chi's Destin, right? And I believe he's going to do a great job directing that thing. But we still don't know who's directing Avengers Secret Wars. And I thought it would be fun to take a minute with this report going around as the backdrop as who really should be the 5 people that would be great picks to direct Avengers Secret Wars. Now, I want to make it very clear. There are probably 30 or 40 names that would be great picks to direct this. That 30 or 40 sets of directors or individual directors that would probably could do a great job with it. These are the 5 that stand out to me, though. And then I'm going to go over my list first, then we're going to go over and hear Chris's list. And I'm going to start off my list with the one the report is going around about, Sam Raimi. I think Sam Raimi, while I don't believe the report that he is currently the front runner to do it, I believe he would be an excellent choice. And here's why. First of all, he's made 2 of the greatest comic book films of all time with Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. Like, he was one of the pioneers of the new golden age of comic book movies. He was making great comic book movies before comic book movies were the biggest force in the world, right? But he also knows how to, interweave great story with stuff like that. Army of Darkness. If you've never seen his little horror film, Drag Me to Hell, it is a really well done little horror film. And then, of course, everybody, you can complain all you want about Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. I rewatched it again recently. It was better than I remember it being. Still not as good as the first Doctor Strange, and still a number of things in it that really irritated me. But overall, there was a lot of really good stuff in there. The Scarlet Witch stuff to me was absolutely fantastic. And the reality is, Sam Raimi was able to come in and make a sequel that made significantly more money than the first film did and almost cracked $1 billion. Not to mention, it was the first Marvel film that got made where Kevin Feige basically kept his hands off it. Because he got so busy with all the Marvel projects, he needed a director that he trusted could just run with it, right? And when you've got a filmmaker that Kevin Feige trusts that much, and it's the director of Spider-Man 2, still to this day one of the greatest comic book films ever made, I think he would be a really interesting choice to do it. I mean, obviously, I would hope for a better movie than Doctor Strange 2, but he's clearly shown he can do better movies than Doctor Strange 2. I think he would be a really interesting pick. All right, next up on my list is Sam Mendes. I know this one's going to strike some people really oddly, but I will always remember Kevin Feige telling me, and you guys saw the interview I did with him when he said, a good storyteller is a good story. That's the first thing Kevin Feige looks for, is a good storyteller. When you look at films like 1917, like Road to Perdition, like American Beauty, and then you take that storytelling sensibility and then wrap it up into an action spy thriller like James Bond, which, if I'm not mistaken, I believe ended up being the #1 box office James Bond film of all time, was Skyfall. You take a world like the Marvel Cinematic Universe with a guy who has that kind of storytelling sensibilities, has shown the ability to wrap it into a thrilling action movie as well, with a great iconic action hero of cinema for decades and decades and decades and decades. Imagine what he could do in something like a Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's worked with the biggest stars. He's completely respected amongst all the actors in the business. So you walk into a set like an Avengers set that's going to be crowded with big name stars. This is a director who's not going to be fazed by any of that. I think Sam Mendes would be an incredible choice to direct a Secret Wars. All right. Let's go into my third pick here. And this is the obvious one. But the Russo brothers. I mean, look, you can make an argument that they directed 4 of the best Marvel films there are. With Captain America Winter Soldier, Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. Now, the one thing I will say that puts a little bit of a caution up for it is that since them working in the MCU, their post working with Kevin Feige stuff has not been great. Like Gray Man was terrible. Cherry was terrible. Despite the fact that they had some of their great MCU cast come along for both of those movies. So you got to wonder how much of it is Joe and Anthony. And by the way, Joe and Anthony have been in my studio multiple occasions. They are fantastic. I love these guys. But I got to be objective here that since working with Kevin Feige, the product has not been to the same level. But put them back working with Kevin Feige again, recapture that magic of Civil War, of Infinity War. I mean, and what a triumphant return that would be. You know, gone that long and then coming back for the next big Avengers film. That could be a great story. And that would make these guys an absolutely wonderful choice to do it. Let me go outside the box a little bit here to a couple of names that a couple of people might not be thinking about. Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, the 2 guys who directed the first John Wick film together, went on to do some incredible stuff. Chad went on to direct John Wick 2, 3, and 4, looking at doing things like The Highlander and The Ghost of Tsushima. You've had David Leitch, who's been able to go on and do things like Deadpool 2, Bullet Train, Atomic Blonde, all movies I really, really enjoy. But here's the important thing. All of them have a cool story. When you look at John Wick, what are we talking about even more than the gun fu in John Wick? We talk about the mythology they've built in those movies. When you look at a Deadpool 2, you got these great characters that make the action and the humor work so well. Bullet Train was an absolute delight of a film. Atomic Blonde was maybe a little bit more advanced and intricate for its own good. They might have actually hurt the film a little bit, but still, these are guys who completely have a handle. Maybe they are the maestros right now of on-screen action, but also tell good stories heightening and using characters over action. And that's why I think you put now they've been working independently and individually lately. But I think you put these two guys together again for an Avengers film. I think that could be really spectacular. Now, these are in no particular order. So this fifth one in my final is not necessarily the top of my list, but I love this choice. Travis Knight. His filmography, as far as being in the director's chair goes, is more limited. That's the strike on Travis Knight. He is more limited there. A lot of experience as a producer, more limited stuff as a director. But I am in love with the two feature films that he's directed. Kubo and the Two Strings was universally beloved. And then he came into live action, into a dead, decaying corpse of a franchise known as the Transformers, and did a Bumblebee movie and killed it. He put heart back into Transformers. He brought, I know this sounds weird to say, humanity back into Transformers. He really legitimately told a beautiful story in one of the most, up to that point, the most satisfying Transformers. I'll say this is the best Transformers movie ever made. Bumblebee is the best Transformers movie ever made. And so he was able to step into a high pressure, high recognizable, and was completely in the toilet franchise and actually breathed life into it, made it relevant again, made just a spectacular movie. You take a guy who can do that and put him into something like an Avengers movie, I would love to see what the results would be. So again, my 5 picks would be Sam Raimi, Sam Mendes, the Russo brothers, Chad Stahelski and David Leitch, and Travis Knight. And I think I missed Sam Mendes in there somewhere. Anyway, those are the picks that I would have. Again, I'm acknowledging there are probably many other directors who would also do a bang-up great job that I'd be thrilled if I heard they're directing it. But these are the 5 that I'm going to pick out. So, Chris, let me throw it over to you. You've had a little bit of time to ponder on this. Who are 5 names or sets of names that if you found out Marvel's just announced that this person or these people are directing Avengers, Secret Wars, would get you really excited?
Well, first we have to address that Secret Wars is kind of a shit show of a comic.
Yeah. And there's different iterations of it. There's different versions of it.
It's a lot of these big annuals, right? They are meant to just sell things. That's the big thing. It's big crossover events, big fights. We've got the Beyonder and Battle World. So we do need someone who can just deliver some epic, fun fights and really big emphasis on the fun and balancing out all these different characters, right? So like you, the Russo brothers were the obvious one to me because we've seen them do that before. But it might be a situation too where John Watts kind of took a break from the superhero genre because I would put him on this list.
After doing the 3 Spider-Man films,
right?
And he's got...
he was supposed to do Fantastic Four and then was like, I need a break.
But he's got the new Star Wars show. Yep. What's the one with the kids?
Not the Acolyte.
Not the Castaway. Not the Castaways.
The one with Jude Law.
Yeah, Jude Law's in
it. What is it?
I just know Jude Law's in it. I can't think of
the
the
right
name
now
of
he's
it.
doing that. He could be I like that.
But he would be a really, really
one,
great guy in there. But again, I don't know if he wants to do this. Same with Daniel Day Cretton. He's got so much stuff going on. So Russo brothers, it makes sense because they balanced it, but maybe they won't want to sign up because they have done so many Marvel movies already. So other two
Skeleton
people.
Crew.
Skeleton Crew. Thank you.
I put these two people kind of together because maybe they could both do this or maybe one or the other, but it's the same reasoning. Kate Herron or Matt Shakman. So the directors of Loki or WandaVision.
Yeah.
Because WandaVision, obviously the most emotionally resonant show that we've had throughout the Marvel Universe. While there's not tons and tons of action there, there's such great character development. And I feel like he's somebody, too, who could really work well with some writers and really get some meat out of this kind of bombastic throw-in-punches story and find some actual nuance in there. With Kate Herron, say what you will about Loki. I think she juggled a lot of high-end concepts and also stuck the landing on making sure this show made sense in the universe at this time. That show did a really great job, I think, of balancing out, hey, here's how timelines work. here's what's going on with Kang. We're setting him up to be this big bad. I think it did exactly what it was supposed to do. And then other movies have kind of devalued it by going, but actually maybe time works like this, but maybe the multiverse is this, and who knows about the quantum realm. So I think those folks could be pretty good too.
I love the bringing up Matt Shackman. The one thing that could get in the way of it, sadly, doesn't undermine how much I love the pick though, is that he is doing Fantastic Four. So I wonder if I don't know, maybe that'll be his lead up into Secret Wars,
Just
right?
like how
I mean,
we
maybe
had
they
kind
could
of
be
the Winter
connected.
Soldier stuff and we moved forward with that
Yeah.
with the Russos, could happen there. Now this one is only if this is supposed to be like a symbolic closing of Marvel. Bring back Jon Favreau. Have him finish what he
Ooh, I
started.
like that.
Right? Full circle, full circle. I think that'd be really lovely. Again, not Iron Man 2 didn't fire on all cylinders for everybody. I don't dislike it as much as other people do. I don't think it's great, but I think it's got its merits. But I mean, that first Iron Man is still such an untouchable movie. I'd love to see that full circle moment. And then my wild card is Peter Jackson.
Wow.
Because right now what he's working on is an untitled Tintin follow-up project, since Spielberg hasn't been
So
working
they
on
say.
that.
They
supposedly.
say he's supposedly been doing that for last 7
It's all
years.
I want, though, too, because I really love the first Tintin
He's
movie.
mostly been doing documentary stuff.
Yeah, he's
lately,
just
right?
done a piece on the Beatles, and he's been producing mostly on
Yeah.
that end of things. I think it'd be really great to bring him into the fold. Obviously, he handles visual effects like nobody's business. He can do really great storytelling. He can do epic battle scenes. And frankly, I feel like the guy could use a win as a director right now, too. The last few things he directed, Mortal Engines, the Kong films.
Well, he didn't direct Mortal Engines.
Oh, he just produced
He
it?
produced
Okay.
it. Yeah, that was a bad
And it
film.
wasn't a great movie.
Yeah, no.
But there's been a few things that he's been associated with that I think kind of, I don't know, not diminish what he's done because he's such an incredible director. But I don't think we've seen anything really of the same caliber since those Lord of the Rings films.
And I
especially
think the
since the Hobbit
Hobbit
ones got weighed down.
The Hobbit films, I think, not only were they a big step down. By the way, I still get a kick out of the Hobbit films. I still like them, but they are a big step down from the Lord of the Rings films. I think that emotionally really killed him.
Yeah.
You know, and to the point that we really haven't seen him do really anything majorly significant in the director's chair since then. What a comeback that would be.
It'd be pretty cool. So those are mine.
Now, I should point out there are some names that we left out of there because they would be pie in the sky. Would I love to see a Steven Spielberg direct one?
Hell yeah.
Of course, he's the greatest sci-fi director of all time. Of course, but it would never happen. Would I love to see what a Martin Scorsese would do with this non-cinema stuff? Of course I would, but that's not something that is ever going to happen. Would I love to see Christopher Nolan do it? Of course I would, but he's never going to do that. So I purposely left out like some of the big obvious major names just because there's no chance in hell I don't think that would ever happen. But anyway, guys, question is for you. What are some names, maybe some dark horse names that we're not throwing around there? Like if I had an honorary list, finally saw Equalizer 3, I'd put Antoine Fuqua on my maybe list.
I am
Yes.
so excited to see that movie. Logan hasn't seen any Equalizers, and he was like, what the hell is this? Looks like amazing.
Oh, you
Yeah.
should see what he does to eyes. Great.
yeah.
I'm so scared of that part.
Yeah, there's no safe body part
No.
I don't
with
see it coming,
Denzel in
too.
these movies. But I mean, what are some other names you guys would throw on that list as well? Would love to see him. Jump down to the comments and let us know. All right, guys, with that down, we're going to take a quick moment here before we get on talking about a bunch of the strike-related stuff. WB is suspending a lot of the major development deals. We have entertainment companies now looking to international markets start filling in the gaps and bringing in other entertainment. Deadpool 3 apparently has Liev Schreiber returning as Sabertooth, all that stuff. But first, we're going to hear from two sponsors of today's episode, our friends at HelloFresh and DraftKings. Guys, we want to thank a sponsor of this video, HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Kickstart a fresh fall routine with HelloFresh. HelloFresh handles all the meal planning and shopping to deliver everything you need to cook up a tasty meal right at home. They do the hard part, and you get to take the credit. HelloFresh takes the stress out of mealtime by delivering fresh ingredients and easy recipes recipes right to your door. So this fall, skip that extra trip to the grocery store and have dinner ready in no time with America's #1 meal kit. Like we've mentioned before, Ann and I are both working professionals, and mealtime is sometimes a bit stressful. That's why we absolutely love HelloFresh. It's nutritious, it's delicious, and we actually have a really good time making dinner together. So guys, go to hellofresh.com/50Campea and use the code 50Campea for 50% off plus 15% off the next 2 months. That's hellofresh.com/50Campea and use the code 50Campea. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, DraftKings. Can you believe we've had 7 months without an NFL game? Crazy, right? Well, good thing that's over. NFL is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving you a can't-miss offer for Week 1. This week, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you just bet $5 on any NFL game. DraftKings is hooking everyone up with game day greatness. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every single game day this September. Check the app to see what you get. So download now and use the code Campea to sign up. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That's code Campea only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. See dkng.co/football for eligibility, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. And thank you to our friends at HelloFresh and DraftKings for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this. Don't know if you've heard, there's some strikes going on. It's made things kind of complicated for a lot of actors, writers, producers, directors. It's just a mess for everybody. No one's happy right now. And it's creating, a bit of a gap, if you will, with shows being moved around, some movies being moved, all that kind of stuff. Well, it kind of looks like on the surface, like studios and the entertainment business as a whole are starting to look at alternatives to like more traditional stuff made by, the inside LA, the inside Hollywood machine that creates content. I mean, obviously we've got the Taylor Swift movie coming, which again, that's not a studio thing, but it's the entertainment business as a whole looking for some alternative ways. The exhibitors saying, what are some alternatives we have to making money here? And now we're looking at like even some of the major networks like CBS. It's like turning to some Australian product, as it has been announced that NCIS Sydney, which is a part of Paramount Plus Australia, CBS is just taking it and putting it on. I think it's going to be their Monday night lineup to come in there. Which apparently, I forget, I read the percentage of people who work on that are not WGA, nor are they SAG, because it's a completely different country. Although, I did recognize a couple of American actors in there that would be a part of SAG as well, but separate thing altogether. This is an interesting move. Now, I was talking to somebody last night about this story, and I was asking, because they're a little inside, and I asked them, is this like a major power move for like a CBS and the networks to say, well, you know what? We're just going to start pulling content elsewhere. And the person said to me, not really. This is more of a making the best of a bad situation right now, kind of a situation, which, I mean, look, there could be some really big upsides to something like this. First of all, crime-solving procedurals on TV rule television. They have forever, and they will forever. I think there's 17 NCIS, 5, Law and Orders, 6. What was the original one? CSIs, 6 CSIs. Yeah, all over the place. So I mean, it's a pretty safe formula for them to do this with. But
I have every season on Steelbook.
Every single one on Steelbook. Oh, did you know they're all part of the Criterion Collection as well?
Oh yeah, I have those too.
Martin Scorsese said it's cinema.
It's cinema. So, I mean, the good thing about this could be that it starts to open up maybe some other avenues of content and entertainment that maybe audiences wouldn't be exposed to or have ever checked out or something like this. It's an interesting move, one that clearly wouldn't be happening right now were it not for the strikes going on. I tend to agree that this is probably more of the networks just saying, hey, we're going to make the best of a bad situation rather than this is a major power move of any sorts. But it's really interesting, Chris. Obviously, like the Taylor Swift thing's a big story, whether there were strikes going on right now or not. But I mean, given the context, it's movie theaters with people having to push movies out of the way and all that kind of stuff, the theater's like, hey, here's something. We've got an alternative thing that we can bring in people to the movie theaters without the general Hollywood system and stuff like that. Now we're seeing, again, I think this is a little thing, but a little thing of some of the networks looking to other avenues, something that maybe makes them a little bit less reliant on the regular machine, if you will. I don't know. When you look at something like this paired with the Taylor Swift, could this become a growing kind of thing with or without the strikes? Or do you think right now this is exactly just best of a bad situation while the situation's bad, but once we get back to normal, we'll see things get back to normal? How do you see this playing out?
Do you think it's more of the latter of trying to make the best of a bad situation, especially when you look at something like an NCIS where it's something familiar but different?
Right.
Because we had, the New Orleans, we had the Hawaii, we have the regular one, and now we've got the Sydney one. So it's your typical procedural with the
And
same
is there an
formula.
LA one? Is there an NCIS LA? Is that the one that
Is that just the reg?
LL
Odds are
Cool
in your
J?
favor if you just say yes.
Sure.
No, I think NCIS. I
'Cause I think
think
there's four
NCIS and NCIS LA are two different shows. I haven't
Maybe.
watched any of them, so I don't know.
I'm not sure.
but I know LL Cool J's in one of them.
He is in one with Robin.
With Robin,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it could be more natural. It's fantastic. They both have chest plates with nipples, which is very weird, but good for them. So I think it makes sense that they're doing this because it does feel familiar, but it's still you getting new content. There was an article in the Hollywood Reporter back in March, back when it seemed like the writer's strike was, something that probably could be handled pretty quickly, talking about how there was potential for foreign films, foreign markets and things to really capitalize on this and for global content creators to potentially make their mark just because we would need that content. This is also something, a little inside baseball moment, where a lot of actors were banking on that. Some of my contacts at dubbing houses were, hey, don't worry, you're going to be okay. I'm going to have a whole bunch of shows come in because of these strikes. So you'll be able to do those SAG jobs of just dubbing over some of these other shows that need English speaking. That has not super panned out. And a whole bunch of those dub houses have already laid off tons of people. So a lot of that content, the boom of it, I think that we all were expecting, hasn't really happened. So I think it is these kinds of live action shows that are English speaking that a lot of these other streamers are going to start moving on over to their accounts. But I mean, I say that as a huge fan of BritBox. Gosh, I love an English murder. Brits are so good at murder and Murder Sullivan. It's so good. Love it.
Do you think though that if, once the strikes end, because at some point they're going to sign a deal. The opposing sides are all, at some point, one day, somewhere over the rainbow, but when that does, do you think something like this where networks could start looking elsewhere to these other markets to bring them in still, even once the regular machine gets rolling again?
Sure. I mean, you just look at how communications changed over the past few years. The world's gotten so much smaller. We're so much more interconnected. And that's happened with our news, and that's definitely happening with our media too. It is kind of odd to me, honestly, that we are very, at least here in America, we are very American-centric with our shows.
Which makes sense.
It totally makes sense, but we also have so many other options out there, right? The same way American films, a lot of times we look at the global box office, and I don't see us, going, oh, well, I saw this really, really great other film from, Australia or whatever, and we don't really think about that as part of our film consumption. We think about that as foreign films. So I think it makes sense, especially with how shows like this do crossovers and everything, that we're going to start getting more and more interconnected and having a more global scale for our TV and film.
All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to this, but stay on the topic of the strikes. The strikes obviously affecting first and foremost the writers, as the Writers Guild is on strike, the actors, because the actors are on strike. We've talked in recent days about the fact that, auxiliary industries are being hurt as well because, without production going on, other people are out of their jobs as well and stuff like that. Well, now we're even seeing it starting to impact and hurt the production companies, now I'm not talking about the major studios, I'm talking about individual smaller production companies, the ones that have like overall deals with studios that are now getting canned. According to a report coming out, Warner Brothers has just suspended the overall deals with people like J.J. Abrams, Greg Berlanti, Mindy Kaling, Bill Lawrence, all these big major producers and creators of content that have overall production deals that even while the strikes were going on, the WB was still paying them so they could pay all their staff, their creative staff, their administrative staff, all that kind of stuff. They could still be there working. But Warner Brothers has pulled the plug on that. Now, according to Variety, this is what they said about this. But production has been almost completely shut down since the SAG-AFTRA joined the WGA members on the picket line in July. Once talent is no longer able to render services, the policy in general is to suspend deals. Such a deal suspension is different from overall terminations, which so far have not been widely seen in the industry, even though, this is interesting, the writer's strike has already passed the 90-day mark when historically, deal makers have the option to kill agreements in the face of an quote-unquote act of God, the common show business interpretation for how the phrase force majeure applies to the type of labor shutdowns. Basically, when you get a guy like, say, Bill Lawrence, right? The guy who created shows like Scrubs and Ted Lasso, right? Like all-time greats. And many
Shrinking.
Cougar Town.
Oh, he's so
Like
great.
lots of these great shows, Bill Lawrence, right? He's got this overall deal. So even though the strikes are going on, like he's still developing, right? And him and his entire company are still developing. And people are getting paid working in those companies that are still, you know, meeting the requirements of their overall deal. Well, there is a clause in all those deals of a force majeure, which basically says something like this, that it's outside of everybody's control, even though it is somewhat in your control. But, you know, the strikes are going on. That is part of the thing that's included. After 90 days, they have the right to just up and kill the deals and say, these deals are done. These deals are over. Now, the other option they have is to suspend the deals. And what that would essentially mean is once the strikes are over, the deals can then resume. However, the big problem is for the 7,500, 300 people who work at all these individual companies and development stages, they're all going to be without getting a paycheck between now and whenever the deals get resumed. So this is going to hurt them. Also, the talk around the industry right now, so this is not a fact that can be confirmed. I want to be very, very clear about that. But the talk that's going around is that right now what Warner Brothers is doing is suspending the deals, but behind the scenes, they're looking to restructure these deals. And they're going to use this as an opportunity to go to the companies and say, look, we have the right to kill the deals, but we'd rather not. I mean, we like working with you, but we believe the terms that you have, which in some of these situations were terms that were made by the previous ownership of Warner Brothers, that the current ownership doesn't like the deals that were there, may want to go and say, we want to change the terms of the deal. And it may behoove somebody like a J.J. Abrams or a Greg Berlanti or a Mindy Kaling to go, yeah, that's still better than what I'll get elsewhere. So yeah, we'll take it. Or they could say no and they'll just keep the deal, or they could say no and they could part ways and Warner Brothers will kill the deal. But for now, the main thing is their waterline, their finances have been cut off. At this point, which I get it. If the industry isn't in development, the industry's not working, you know, the parties involved should have the opportunity to say, we need to suspend the terms of our agreement right now because the industry is not functioning at the moment. Anyway, Chris, you know, we didn't point it out earlier for anybody who's relatively new to the show, but you are a member of SAG. You've actually been on their nomination committee before.
Yeah, which was so fun.
This obviously is not a SAG actor specific deal, but it is something you still have a little bit of vested interest in. Surprised to see this happen. Surprised it didn't happen a little bit earlier, like when the 90-day mark hit. Do you think we're going to see other studios also like step in with their first look deal companies that they have and maybe suspending these? I don't know. What do you think about this?
I am surprised it didn't happen a little sooner because of how the studios have been in cost-cutting mode and really just trying to hang on to what they can. But I think they did think this last time they all met up, everything was going to be fine with that. Well, here's the deal, so just accept it. And clearly that's not how things went out. So it doesn't surprise me that they're suspending these. It just surprised me that it took this long to do it. I want to note too, I mean, we've surpassed the original, well, not original, but the last writer's strike, the 2007 one, ended on its 100-day mark.
Right. We're now in like what, 100?
We're almost a day 130. I think today is day 129.
No, really?
I believe so.
For writers.
For writers, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Actors, we're now into the 50s, which is longer than I thought for that too.
Well,
So-
remember when the deadline was coming up and then the AMPTP and Fran Drescher of SAG said, you know what? We've been meeting. We're going to extend the deadline by a week, to which naive morons like me went, well, they must be close to a deal. If the AMPTP and SAG are saying, you know what? We're talking right now. We're going to give ourselves another week. I thought, awesome. They must be close to a deal. Remember, I even said, you know what? I bet the strike's not. I bet they're going to be able to avoid this strike.
Yep.
Woo! 2 months later, that
Ruh-roh.
did not age well.
No, I don't think any of us saw it coming of this lasting this long.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously because of my position in the union, I do have a vested interest, and I also have a different perspective on the AMPTP of just, guys, this is costing you so much more money than the initial negotiation offers. Let's figure it out. Let's figure it out right now. I do think it behooves WB to be able to suspend them so they can change the terms of their deal, potentially to recoup costs later on. Maybe we offer
that's a
some of
good
these
point.
folks less money moving on. I don't know if that means they'll stay with WB or they'll just accept their terms because they're so eager to get back to work. And that is always one of the issues when it comes to the entertainment industry or any industry that's got fans, right? We all love working, and there was a part of us at a point in time that would go, I'll pay you to let me do this job. I just want to go make films, and I want to do this, and I want to do that. And I know around my community, at least, some actors are starting to already wear thin of just, I got to do something. I got to do something again. And that's when things can get really dangerous of either people accepting really lowball offers or crossing that picket line. So this is why it is so important that everybody just sits down and figures it out so everyone can make a living wage. And also so we avoid more layoffs, because that's something else that's going to be happening. If we see this happening at Warner Brothers with suspended deals, that's shows being cut, that's people losing their jobs. And it's already been rumored that we're going to see that at NBC Universal in the next coming weeks as well.
All right. Well, just hope everybody can sit down at a table, order some nachos, and come to some kind of an agreement here soon.
That's what's been missing from the negotiations is nachos.
You can't be in a bad mood when there's nachos on the table.
You can't be angry eating a nacho.
And a bowl of ice cream.
You know what
Everybody
doesn't
can
eat nachos? AI. Get AI.
That's right.
Get out of here. They can't eat a
No
nacho
AI
with
at
you.
the
They can't write the
negotiating
script.
table. Hey, we'll see how this all kind of continues to play out. All right, guys. With that down, one more thing for us to discuss here. There is a report going around right now that Liev Schreiber, who of course you guys remember, did play Sabertooth alongside Hugh Jackman's Wolverine previously. Well, this report here is now going around that we're going to see Liev Schreiber come back for Deadpool 3. Now, this report has not been confirmed by Disney. However, this is unlike the Sam Raimi one that I don't buy into it, although I think it would be a great option. This is one I completely believe. And the reason I completely believe this one is this. They seem to be bringing back everybody. Number one, like we know Halle Berry. I keep wanting to say Bailey. Halle Berry is come back in there. We know some X-Men alum are going to be in there. Patrick Stewart is teased that he's going to be in there. Ian McKellen is teased that he's going to be in there.
Wasn't Jennifer Garner rumored for
No.
that?
That's been confirmed.
That's confirmed?
confirmed.
That was
Okay,
confirmed. Jennifer
that's
Garner
wild.
is coming back as Elektra.
How happy are you?
Oh, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah.
I'm pretty damn happy. For those of you who don't know, Jennifer Garner is my longest standing celebrity crush. And so with that, it would just make sense. Now, this movie was also the one that had, remember, Ryan Reynolds worked with Liev Schreiber in this movie because he was Deadpool in this movie without a mouth. So dumb, so bad. But Liev Schreiber as Sabertooth was really cool. It was a very different implementation of Sabertooth lore than what we'd seen before. But I could listen to Liev Schreiber read the phone book. I think he's got this incredible voice. He's got an incredible screen presence. If you have not seen Ray Donovan, you really should watch Ray Donovan. It's really freaking good. And he is so good in it. And I thought him and Hugh Jackman played off each other really extremely well. Now, the rumor and report going around is that it's more than a cameo, but not like a major headline role like Ryan Reynolds. It's not going to be Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, and Liev Schreiber, star in Deadpool 3. But it's going to be more than just a little cameo, though. So whatever it is, to whatever degree, I personally do buy into this report. I won't be stunned and shocked if we do find out later that it's not true. But for now, I'm actually putting more stock in it because it does line up factually with a lot of other things that we've seen happening in there right now. And if it is true, sign me up. I'd love it. Now, I don't want Deadpool 3 to become a cameo fest. I just don't want it to be where every third scene, who's going to pop up next? I don't want it to be that. But, you look at a movie like Avengers Infinity War, you can have a good amount of characters in there and it not just feel like fan service if done well and give them all good narrative purpose. And if you've got a good narrative purpose for a Sabertooth to be in there, not that I want to see Tyler Mane brought back as his Sabertooth as well, but the Liev Schreiber one, sign me up. I think this is great. Chris, 2 different questions are here. Mm-hmm. One, with everything that we do know, do you believe this report, or do you think we still got to take it with a pretty significant sized grain of salt? And then secondly, aside from the validity of the report, would you like to see him back in there? Or do you think maybe this thing's already getting a little bit too crowded, which could be a legitimate concern?
It is getting a little overstuffed, and I only like my Oreos that way, not my movies. And I like you, I don't want this to just be a member berry situation. I want everyone to be there for a reason.
Right.
There are certain things. Honestly, Jennifer Garner, love her so much, but I do hope that she's just kind of like, hey guys, what's up? And then leaves. I want it to be people who make sense with not only Deadpool stuff right now, but also with Ryan's own filmography, because I think that makes it for a really fun ride when he gets to have those meta jokes, people he's interacted with. So I love the idea of Liev being in this for that reason, because they were in Origins together. Also, his chemistry with Hugh Jackman.
So good.
So good, so great. Their just ability to play off of each other and feel like brothers and feel like they had the same training and upbringing was so wonderful. And one of the few shining things in that film, honestly. And I do think that he would want to come back. He's talked about it before, of saying he's really enjoyed that part, but he's never felt like, Victor fit the narrative of what the MCU or any of these other films were doing, or the Sony films were doing. And so he's talked about how if he's not too old, he'd like to do it. So I could see him wanting to come back. So I think that there is validity to this one, and I'd love to see it. Also, this makes me really want to reread Wolverine Origin. Y'all should read that. It's so messed up watching that panel of the first time little boy Logan has the bones come out of his hands. It's so good. It's so, so good. It just makes me want to rewatch some gritty Wolverine, honestly.
All right. With that down now, guys, we are going to move on and start taking questions from our YouTube channel members. But before we do, we're going to take another quick moment here and thank another sponsor of today's episode. Speaking of Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool, my mobile service phone provider, and they should be yours, Mint Mobile. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Signing your life away to a big wireless provider is kind of like being trapped on a roller coaster from hell. Sure, it looks like fun at first. They probably even threw in a free phone, but now you can't get off. Month after month of insane bills and unexpected thrills, like overages and surprise fees. If that sounds like your current big wireless plan, it's time to get off the ride with Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You guys know before I came to Mint Mobile, I was paying triple what I am paying now on the standard big wireless plan, and I will never go back. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped right to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for being my mobile service provider and for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show podcast. All right, guys, with that down, let's move over now and start taking questions from our YouTube channel members. By the way, if you guys aren't YouTube channel members, why don't you consider becoming one? You get access to some exclusive emojis. We do town halls every once in a while. We take our questions every day on the John Campea Show podcast exclusively from our YouTube channel members. Then a few things more, so we hope to see you guys there. So for now, let's get over and hear what our YouTube channel members are asking. Chris, what do we have up first?
From Red One Real Talk, I've heard all this talk about bike riders, and knowing nothing, I assumed that this was a movie like Little Rascals about children riding bikes. It finally clicked when I saw the new trailer, and this couldn't be more different than what I assumed. Good Lord, does this have me excited. Yeah, Bike Riders has a very like newspaper route kind of feel to it.
No, I'll just say it. It's a bad title. It is a bad title. But John, you know what I'm saying? You see it's coming. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. It is a bad title. That being said, of course, Sons of Anarchy is one of my top 3 favorite films or shows of all time. So I'm kind of a sucker for this sort of thing. I'm looking forward to watching this and hope it's as good as the hype is right now. All right, what's next?
From Carmelo. Hey, John, I watched MI7 2 weeks ago and wondered in part 2 of Dead Reckoning, do you think we could see the return of Jeremy Renner, William Brandt? I'm hoping he makes a comeback.
I don't think so. I think he checked out of the Mission Impossible franchise. There was a thought there for a little while that Jeremy Renner would be kind of taking over the Mission Impossible franchise. That clearly is not happening anytime soon. As Tom Cruise recently said, he wants to be playing Ethan Hunt into his 80s, which I don't think that's going to happen either. But so no, I don't think they're going to do that. And especially now, I think after his accident, I think he's going to be pacing himself a little bit more. They just announced officially the renewal for Mayor of Kingstown season 3. So that's going to be on his probably top priority. And I don't think he's going to want to push it too awful much. So is it impossible? Nope. I just think when you look at all the circumstances surrounding it, I don't think I'd put any money on him coming back in part 2. All right, what's next?
From Casinema, if you were James Gunn writing Superman Legacy, what's something other Superman movies have done that you haven't done that you'd like to see? For me, I wouldn't kill off Pa Kent. He gets to live and see Clark as Superman in animation, but never in live action for some reason. That bugs me too.
The death of Pa Kent is not like the death of Uncle Ben. Like the death of Uncle Ben is a major turning point in the life and philosophy of Peter Parker that really kind of, it's, well, what they would say in the Spider-Verse movies, it's a canon event, right? The death of Pa Kent, while significant, is not one of those moments for Clark, at least not to the same degree. It would be interesting to see them have an adult Clark where both, Ma and Pa Kent are both still alive and still both there giving him counsel and stuff like that. So I like that idea. As far as anything else, who knows? There's a million things on the table that they could do, but I do like your idea. I'd be down for seeing that. All right, what's next?
From Jai, more of an observation than question, but saw an article which outlined that Spotify, which I think has more paid subscribers than even Netflix or Disney, is never going to be profitable. That's shocking to me.
Here's the thing. A lot of people said that as well about Netflix. A lot of people forget today that Netflix, while profitable now, they only became profitable a short time ago. They went over a decade of losing not millions, but billions of dollars every year. But with the sheer volume of money that they were bringing in, even though expenses outweighed it and the licensing fees outweighed and all that kind of stuff, they knew they were heading to a place of profitability. The thing about Spotify is they have such a huge number of people. At some point, they will be profitable. That's the only way they can have investments. That's the only way they'd still be in existence if there was a plan to get them to profitability. So I do think they're going to get there, although I'm not as tied in or as well read on that as I was with the Netflix stuff, but they've got to get, there's just so many people who subscribe to it. All right, what's next?
From Ulatan, why did Pearl Harbor hurt Josh Hartnett's career more than Ben Affleck's and Kate Beckinsale's?
That's a very good question.
He didn't get the girl at the end.
Well, there's that. But I think the main thing is Ben Affleck was a little bit more established before Pearl Harbor than Josh Hartnett was. I think Ben Affleck was in a position that he could take a punch in the mouth a little bit better than Josh Hartnett could. It's kind of like why you can have like an Al Pacino being a stinker of a film, it doesn't mean nothing to his legacy because he's already so established. Whereas with Josh Hartnett, maybe he wasn't. Now, I might be right about that. I might be wrong about that. All I know is that I love Josh Hartnett. I think he's terrific on screen. He can do deadly serious. He can do romantic. And just recently I saw him in a movie with Jason Statham called Operation Fortune, which he and Hugh Grant are both so good in it. Nobody saw the movie. Nobody saw it. It was just in theaters like less than a year ago. You watch Operation. It's got some other weird name to it, but Operation Fortune, check it out. Guy Ritchie directed, I believe. It's wonderful. I had a really good time with it. Go check it out. All right, what's next?
From Amin, if the contracts between the unions and the AMPTP only last 3 years, why weren't some of these big issues like AI and residuals, which aren't new things, brought up 3 years ago during the pandemic when they had a whole hell of a lot of time to negotiate? Why are these issues just being brought up now? The same goes for like base salary.
Two things. Number one, do not underestimate how fast technology changes. 3 years ago, you never heard of ChatGPT. You never heard of it, right? It was a very, very different landscape 3 years ago, which is part of the reason why there is wisdom in making these deals so short, because things in the landscape can change very quickly. Even though streaming was becoming a thing, it was not the predominant thing when they signed their deal 3 years ago that it is today, right? Everything's changed very fast and very quickly. Now, that's the one thing, right? So cut everybody from the unions to the AMPTP, cut everybody a break on that because things change. That's why they have such short terms. The other question you bring up, which is the one that has been really big for me, has been, why the holy fuck have you not been talking to each other and negotiating for 3 years? Like it really, I can't remember. You're going to have to correct me where I'm wrong. I can't remember if it was SAG or the WGA. It was one of the two where it came out that they're going to begin their discussions. I remember reading in Variety, they're going to start their discussions. And it was like 12 days before the end of the current deal.
Oh, I think that's me.
Was that SAG?
I think that's my folks.
Right. It was like, they're going to start negotiations 12 days. Now, we later found out that the reason a lot of people forget the Directors Guild also had their deal expire, but they managed to sign a deal. And what I found out from a member of the DGA was that, well, that's because we've been talking to them the whole time. We worked out these issues, and some of these issues took us a long time to come to an agreement on, but we did it all well in advance. Why did the AMPTP, that's the studios, why did they not 7 months ago say, hey, union leaders, we're going to go to Arizona for the weekend, book this big thing for 4 days. Why are you guys coming along and we can sit down and just start spitballing together? Just start throwing ideas, get an idea about where each of us are in our positions. You know, let's get the ball rolling now. Let's not wait until the deadline, until 0 hour before we start talking to each other. Why somebody at the AMPT, why one of the major studios did not do that when clearly that was there for the directors, I will never understand. Listen, I can only give you my own experience from this, so take this for what it's worth. But I remember when they had decided that they were going to transition me from AMC from being a contractor, because the first number of years I was at AMC, I was a contractor. I was a contractor, signed by them to, in LA, put together this online movie presence thing for AMC theaters, right? Now, at some point, they realized, yeah, you need to be a full-time employee of AMC. I started my salary negotiations with them like 4 months before that date got there. Like, I didn't wait until 5 days before they were supposed to transfer me over to being a full-time employee of AMC theaters. I started my contract negotiations and my salary negotiations months in advance. Because you better believe they didn't want to pay me what I was asking for 4 months before I went over, but I got them there. It took me 4 months, but I did. But that's the thing. Why the directors did this and why the AMPTP didn't do that with, like, look, I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure at some point somebody in the WGA is going to say, well, the reason we didn't start talking to them before like a year in advance is because of this, or maybe someone in the AMPTP will say, well, yeah, well, we could talk to the directors because of this, but we weren't able to talk to, say, the actors union because I don't know, maybe there is a good reason. I just can't imagine what would stop people from saying, hey, why don't you come on over? Let's hang out by the pool, have some barbecue and start spitballing some ideas and not wait until the last fucking minute and put the whole fucking industry in jeopardy. I don't know why that didn't happen. Anyway, I'm looking at you, studio heads. All right, what's next?
From Pro Wrestling Eve. Hi, everyone. The latest FNAF trailer is
Five Nights at
awesome.
Freddy's? Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Is awesome, and this house can't wait to see the movie. But what would you say is a needed theatrical financial taking for the movie, considering its day-and-date release strategy? And do you think that figure is achievable? Also, Ray, have you seen the TMNT Fugglers? They're divisive as hell, but we love them.
I've never heard of that. What is that?
Fuggler sounds like something you say mean about somebody else.
Fugglers
It sounds
are,
like a Garbage Pail Kids.
So these are like, I brought up an image because I saw it ahead.
Oh, those are so cute.
Yeah, they make these like little
those look
monsters, and they
adorable.
have like human teeth, not real human teeth, but they're supposed to look like it.
transplanted real human teeth.
You know, and then this is them all together. But like it's a fox,
Okay,
an
those are
ape,
kind of cute, but the teeth are fucking weird.
and like a bear. I don't know what this thing is, the furry
Mine.
thing.
Got it.
That's
Got
like
it?
something out of a nightmare. But
Getting
in
them.
general, those are pretty cute.
This one.
Oh God, their teeth are horrifying.
As far as Five Nights at Freddy's goes, I don't know what the budget on it is.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, all I know is this: is that whenever Universal has done
Day and date.
the day and date thing, it's turned out to be a disaster. Like the first Halloween movie with Jamie Lee Curtis.
That says 25.
Not the original one. Not
Yeah.
the original one. But I mean the one they did a couple of years ago, the first of the new ones. It was magnificent. It was the first Halloween movie I ever really liked. It was so good.
It says 25 million, so it's not crazy.
Okay, so it's a relatively manageable thing. Okay, so they did that. But then when they announced that Halloween 2 was going to go day and date release on Peacock, it's like, oh, okay. And that movie was dog shit. And then Halloween 3, the third one they did, which was also day and date, was dog shit that another dog ate and then shit out again. That's how bad that was.
Like Fugglers.
Like Fugglers, I'll be honest with you. Most of my excitement for Five Nights at Freddy's went away when they announced that they're doing, because to me, it was just them screaming that they don't actually have any belief in the movie. So at $25 million, let's say they stay pretty modest with their marketing budget, probably like 30 to 40 million. So they're probably, 120 million dollars at the box office. They might be okay. That would probably be all right for them. But I have very, very little faith in this movie. I'm going to have to be really pleasantly surprised. So, we'll see. All right. What's next?
From Matt, hey crew, what are some of y'all's favorite paranormal movies since spooky season is upon us? Oh good, let me start.
Yes, you do start. Go ahead.
I hate scary things so much. I don't really watch paranormal ones. So I watch I like horror comedies. I like things like Wolf Cop. I like things like Cabin Fever.
The hell is Wolf Cop?
Oh my gosh, Wolf Cop is so bad. A man's dick gets bit off. It's terrible.
It sounds like Strays.
I mean, there's a parallel. There's the kind of content I enjoy, John. And what other horror ones? I don't really like the paranormal stuff. I don't like spookies. I can't think of something that is fun for me.
The paranormal series, especially the first one, creeped me out.
Yeah.
Paranormal Activity. Yeah.
Yeah.
But first of all, can I make something very, very clear? Ann and I, we go for a 2-mile walk every night. And we're walking around our neighborhood. And one of our neighbors, God bless them, but they've already put up their Halloween stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, we are 2 months away still from
Well, you know
from
what?
Halloween. It is not Halloween season.
Yeah.
So it is not creepy season yet. Okay. Can I be clear about that?
No.
It bothers me as much as like when on like October 21st, people start putting up Christmas decorations. It's
Too
like,
many people
No,
think-
I love Christmas.
Yeah.
Too early.
Too many people think September is fall. September doesn't start till the 22nd.
Listen.
Fall doesn't start till the 26th.
I am
September, it doesn't
trying
start till the
to
22nd.
will fall into existence. It's supposed to be 97 degrees tomorrow.
Oh, I
and
want
that's
fall, but-
disgusting. So I
And
put
we're
down
still summer.
I put down my Silly Symphony's skeleton banner on my table. I put some bats up on the wall. I don't even like scary things, but
It's
I
still
want it to
summer.
be fall.
I will take
too
any
hot.
opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and see if you can pull up an image or two of this one, Jonathan, to promote and tell people, be an evangelist for a little horror movie that would be right in your wheelhouse, Chris. I don't know if you've seen it or not, called
I don't trust you.
Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. It is one of the smartest, funniest horror movies I've ever seen. Some of you have heard me explain it before. Chris, if you haven't, you should watch this. I think you would love this movie.
That looks like the face masks I do on the weekends.
What it is it's kind of like Parks and Rec in a way that it starts as a faux documentary being made by a college group in a world where Freddy, Jason, and Michael were all real. So in this world, all those were real. These supernatural serial killers, they're well known, they were famous, what happened. And this documentary crew is following this guy named Leslie Vernon, who's currently in training to become the next great supernatural serial killer.
Aww.
And
He'll get there.
Aspiration.
it is the first 3/4 of the movie are hilarious and incredible insight and commentary into the horror genre and why people like horror movies, and they spoof a lot of tropes in horror movies and stuff like that too. And then in the last quarter of the movie, they switch gears and they go from faux documentary to now 80s style horror slasher film, where now Leslie is he's out. Leslie is now unleashed. He's out there hunting the girl, right? It is hilarious and fascinating and smart. Robert Englund makes an appearance in it. There's a couple of who's the little old lady in Poltergeist, the one who talks like this. Anyway, she's in it as well. It's just wonderful. So, and no one ever saw it, but
Zelda Rubinstein.
Behind the
Christine, sorry.
Mask,
Not
The
sure.
Rise of Leslie Vernon. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I absolutely love it.
When it gets into actual 80s slasher territory, though, is it still like goofy stylized 80s slasher, or is it visceral? Because you know that I am a baby.
I mean, there's elements of visceral, but
Okay.
it's really more 80s trope style of slasher
Okay,
films,
because
right?
like the original Halloween, obviously, I can sit down and watch that and have some giggles. But
Yeah, it's more like that.
Okay,
It's more-
cool.
So they switch gears very jarringly from faux documentary to now it's a movie.
to murder.
It's just so fun. I love the movie so much. You guys should check it out. All right, guys. With that all down, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Thank you so much for being here and making this show part of your day. Big special thank you to our YouTube channel members for being channel members and supporting what we do, but also submitting some fun things for us to talk about. I want to thank the people in the room with me, Ray Ora,
Yep. See you later.
Jonathan Voico,
See ya.
Chris Carr's here.
Stick around for open mic later.
My name is John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.